Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino.
Hey, man. Every week, we got to say the same thing. We can't thank the fans enough. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We honestly could not do it without you.
That's right. And make sure when you do tell your friends, and we please tell your friends.
All of them.
Make sure you tell them that you heard it here first.
That's right, because you have.
That's right.
Yeah, you've heard at least something new here first all the time, I guarantee you. So we're going to take a pause for the cause, and then we're going to be back with a recurring guest. A second-time guest, not recurring yet, because I think that's 3 times or more. Anyway, a past guest who is back out on tour, new release out. So we're gonna just talk to him a little bit about the new release and what gear he's using now and has anything changed and yada yada. So we'll be right back with our guest of the week, Mr. Richie Kotzen.
Hi, this is Mark Bartel from Bartel Amplifiers, and I'm here on Amps and Axes.
Hi there, this is Matt Wakeling, host of the Guitar Speak podcast, a weekly show produced in Sydney, Australia, interviewing leading guitarists, luthiers and gear builders from Australia and all around the world. We're into all sorts of styles, all sorts of gear, so if you love the guitar, why not look us up on iTunes or Stitcher and join thousands of listeners around the world who tune in to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Okay, and we are back as promised with our guest of the week. Second time on the show for our guest, and it's been so long he may not remember, so we'll remind him. And we are back with Mr. Richie Kotzen. Richie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Well, we have you on, so
that's
of course
right,
we're doing
man.
Great.
Let me just do my thing that I always do for most of the shows. I had the pleasure.
You got a story.
Yeah, I always have a story. I had the pleasure to see Richie play last Saturday at Ram's Head on stage in Annapolis, and it was kind of like a last minute thing, but it was crazy good. I mean, dude, here's the thing that I admire so much about not only your playing and your writing and all that, is that you've gone from this world that you were touted as like this crazy guitar shredder guy, and your music has matured more than any of those guys that are still out there doing that thing. And you play the piano like as good as you play the guitar. I mean, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude, you were killing it, and your band is just sick. I mean, I just never seen 3 guys do what you guys did.
What gig were you at?
the Ram's Head gig.
Where is? I'm trying to just remember. Where is Ram's Head?
Annapolis, Maryland.
The Maryland gig. Okay, I remember. Now I kind of remember that gig. I just like to try to figure out what gig you were at.
Yeah.
And the room and how I felt that night when I played and stuff like that. Because it's weird. Some shows I walk off stage feeling like really great, and then sometimes I do a show and I don't feel so good. So I was just wondering which one, but I think that was a good night.
Well, I tell you what, man.
I'm curious. Let me interject here for a second.
Sure.
I'm curious because I don't know if you remember or not. That's a seated room, and sometimes playing to seated rooms is
okay.
Different.
Now I remember. I played there before
go.
when I did my tour. I remember it. Yeah. That was. I'm trying to remember that. That was one. Yeah, that was one that I thought was one of our better shows. It's funny because we I think Detroit was a real good one for us, and then there was one we did in Pennsylvania where I was just kind of tired, and it was like nothing that I could do. Like my voice wasn't working the way I intended it to work, and it kind of happens. You just get tired. But that was a good night. My cousin was there that night too. I remember.
Oh, nice.
Well, let me tell you, man, it was. I just couldn't even believe what I was seeing, because it was. I guess you kind of go in with this perspective of the Winery Dog stuff, and then of course your solo stuff from long ago, and there's a lot of you when you solo, it's like it's huge. But when I saw it, when Saturday, it was just crazy soulful, and for three guys to pull that off, it was like watching a Motown gig with half of the band. And it worked.
I'm glad you feel that way, because that's this to me, music's about connecting it on that level, and it's really hard to do that. I mean, so much of that, what you saw and what you're talking about, it obviously it's my songs and I'm the guy singing, and I'm jumping back and forth on piano and guitar, but so much of why that's able to even happen has to do with how the three of us interact together musically, and believe it or not, personally. And so when you have that kind of a relationship, it allows you to have a platform in which you can elevate musically to whatever it is you saw. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get there, but it means that it's possible for that to happen. And many times in many situations, it's simply impossible just by nature of the architecture of the situation. But that's the great thing about playing with Dylan and Mike, is that we have that kind of relationship. And it's interesting because we're still able to play the songs too. When we get into these jams, and it's not like we're shredding the whole night. And it's not even about shredding. It's just about the musical choices. But it's a fun set for me, especially now that we have the acoustic thing, and now that there's way more activity with the electric piano. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well,
it's awesome.
It came across that way.
I wish I could have made it out there.
Yeah,
I wish I could have made it out there.
Oh my God, Jeff, you would have been. I'm telling you, I know kind of what you like, and it was.
Well,
huge.
I love Richie. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
I just wish I could have made it out.
And when I saw you sit down at the piano, I was like, okay, I've heard some of this piano stuff, and it's really good. And I'm thinking, but then, man, you were going to town. I'm like, God Almighty, what instrument can't you play? That's, and you on this album though, you tracked everything, right? You did all the instruments, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I sang and played everything.
Good God!
But my wife sang backgrounds on one song with me. I just wanted a female's voice on one particular song. But that's not really uncommon for me to do that on records. And I also have records where other people played other instruments too. So It just so happens that this record just kind of came together that way.
Yeah.
But
well, my question is
nature of how I write, I think.
Well, my question is, when you do that, right? Now, you obviously have written this song, and I don't know do you write it on guitar mostly, or piano, or how do you?
No, believe it or not, the writing really happens in my head, and then I put it to an instrument. Sometimes I have a riff on the guitar that leads to a song. Sometimes a drum beat and a melody. In the case of This Is Life, that really started from a melody and a drum beat. Sometimes a bass line. Sometimes piano. So it's kind of, just very random. Like yesterday, I had a melody come to my mind. So I was getting off the bus, and it was like the first idea I've had in months. So I quickly turned around and ran back on the bus and got my iPhone and opened the recorder app, and there was a guitar in my bedroom. So I grabbed it to try to figure out what the chord changes would be against that melody that I suddenly started singing. And then I figured that out, and then I would just recorded a very crude recording on my phone so I wouldn't forget it. And then after enough time passes, I go back and listen to all these things and decide which one I'm going to try to develop and record and make into a song.
And technology made it so cool. You can just grab your phone and do that nowadays.
And get a very clear recording. You're not getting crap.
Sure.
But that is an amazing process.
In the old days, it was a pain in the ass because I used to have one of those little recorders, with the mini cassette.
Yeah.
And then I had all these cassettes, and then in a weird way, it was it didn't really help me because then I would lose the tape, or I'd have to rewind and fast forward, and it was just a drag. Now it's so much better.
Yeah.
I'm torn because technology, I think, is the downfall of some things, but then there's instances like that and many others where it's just so good to be able to have that kind of capability nowadays.
Yeah, because it's instant. You have it right there on your hip, and you can get it. Now, this album, did you recorded it at your house, right?
Yeah, which is misleading because when people picture me in my bedroom, but I had a lot of really great audio outboard gear in my house, so it was a nice studio. I don't have it anymore because I moved. I owned that house for over 20 years, and I moved out of the city into the mountains in a new house, and so I don't have a studio in the new house, but I don't really need one because I'm touring. At some point, I got to figure that out, though.
Where did you move to?
Well, I'm 5 miles from the beach in the hills of Malibu.
Oh, nice.
That's sweet, man.
Yeah, I'm on my own little hilltop, and when I look out the window, I'm surrounded by vineyards and horses, and
oh man,
that's so sweet.
Yeah, I'm about 30 miles out from downtown LA, 35 miles from downtown LA. And it's funny, when I moved out there, I thought, am I going to miss it? Because I was in the Hollywood Hills, on the valley side of the Hollywood Hills, right by there's a club called the Baked Potato. I was literally up the hill from there, and
really,
it was so fun because I would do gigs and I could go down and jam and all that stuff. But I thought, am I going to miss it, all that? And I don't miss any of it. I don't miss my old house. I don't miss the neighborhood. I don't miss the places I used to go. I found all new places to go, and I love being out there. It's really peaceful.
That is so cool.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, peace of mind is really important.
Yeah.
It's
it'd be interesting to see how it affects the next record I make, if it has any impact on that.
Exactly.
It'll all sound like Jack Johnson.
Yeah, it'll be all mellow and acoustic and violins and
it'll be
folky,
beach music. Just be kind of surfy.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you're originally
Richie will learn to play the hammer dulcimer next.
Now you're originally from Reading, right, or right outside of Reading?
Reading, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. See, I go to the drag races every year in Reading, and I know it well. It's a little Amish.
Is that Maple Grove? Is that
Maple Grove Raceway, man. Yeah, still have them.
I used to go there when I was a kid.
Yeah, every year they break new records because the air is cold and there's a ton of trees, so they get a bunch of oxygen, and it's this whole thing. And every now and then you can see the Amish girls sitting up on the hillside watching. It's really it's kind of neat, seeing these 10,000 horsepower dragsters going down the track. So totally. I guess where you're living from Reading, and now you're on this mountain, except for the beach, you're kind of in that country type vibe, I guess, out there in Malibu.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a country store near me, and there's always motorcycles there and guys sitting there drinking beer all day long. It's kind of cool. And but I've lived in California for more than half my life, so
you're from California.
It's interesting. Yeah, but then I have this weird romance of buying one of those old, we have so many in Pennsylvania. There's great old 1920s kind of manor homes,
sure.
French Normandies and Tudors, and I sometimes fantasize about that.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, it's funny, if it wasn't for my wife and my daughter, I probably would just do that in a year or two from now. But anyway, yeah, I am where I am.
Now, do you still have family here?
Oh yeah, my mom and dad, got my godmother and my cousin, and yeah, they got family back in Pennsylvania.
That's cool.
I've got a half sister that lives in New Jersey, and my nephews. She has 2 kids. So yeah, there's family back here, and got a couple of cousins in Baltimore too.
Oh. Well, look at that. And one of them was obviously at the show that I was at.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly, yeah.
So I was texting Jeff while I was at the show because Jeff was at a gig. And you're playing, you have a signature model coming out, but that was not the signature model, correct, of your amp on the stage?
Yeah, those are the signature model amps.
Okay.
We're testing them out on this tour.
Very nice. So give us some insight. What's going on there?
Oh, right. This is a guitar show, right?
It is.
Talking about houses and
no, that's it. All goes there, man, because the show is so much more about the person.
I've been on the phone for 15 minutes already, and I haven't said one thing about guitar.
That's the way we like it. That's the way we like it, man. We get. It's all about the person.
We're talking dovetail joints.
I can tell you about guitars. I've got the signature model amp that is going to come out soon, but we're still testing it, and I've been using it on the whole tour. But it's so cool because it's so simple. It's 3 knobs that control the tone of the amp. You've got master volume, gain, and 1 tone knob. And then because it's so simple, I decided to add a tremolo and a reverb. So you've got that. It's a 50-watt combo with a 112 speaker, and I love it. I think it sounds great. And what's cool is that the same engineer that builds these amps used to work at Cornford Amplification when they were still making amps. Oh. And this engineer was the guy behind my previous signature model amp that I know so many people loved, the Cornford RK100.
It was a beast.
Yeah, people love it. Now, this is a 50-watt, but eventually we will do a 100-watt head.
Do you still find that you need all that behind you in like smaller venues? Ram said it's a smaller venue.
Depends on who I'm playing with. If I'm playing with the Winery Dogs, I need 2 of them.
Yeah, Billy's a little loud.
Yeah, I got it. I can't compete. I have to have a machine behind me. But you know, in all seriousness, I really love combos. You know, when I record, I do a lot of stuff with combos.
Oh, nice.
And a lot of times they're low wattage combos.
Yeah, I mean that's.
But, you know, I mean the 100-watt thing. Yeah, I mean I use, you know, like when I was touring, even with my solo band, we'd go to like South America. I'd always ask for like the hand-wired 100-watt plexi, and then I can use that with the fly rig and really get that thing to scream really nice. The fly rig is that Tech 21 pedal that I helped develop, and so the thing about the 100-watt plexi, it's a real loud, percussive, you know, clean amp, unless you really crank it. It's pretty clean. But then, you know, it just has that response that I love. I love that low thump that you get. And so that's the thing with the new amp. We've got that, but it also has the new amp has such a great gain stage. I mean, really, don't tell anyone, but this entire tour, I haven't stepped on the overdrive once on my fly rig.
Wow.
I'm using the tube overdrive of the amp, and it just it's great. And so we just have a boost switch on it. But the real reason why I'm really running it that way, just to really put the amp through its paces and see, ultimately, you can use it with the fly rig because the distortion is still different. It's a different kind of distortion.
Sure.
But I just wanted to really lean on the amp to see, like, if I had to go do a gig and all I had was the amp, could I pull it off? Because that's what I used to do with the RK100 head. Back in the day, I plugged straight into that amp with nothing. And then after a while, I decided I wanted a delay, so I would run a delay with that amp. And so I can do the same thing with the Victory. The company's called Victory, with the Victory amp. Technically, I could just throw that in the car and do the gig, which is what I was looking for. And I wanted it to be really simple. And that's why there's only one tone control.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you, because the tone, the whole feature set was so simplistic. I was going to ask you whether it was just a nice, clean 50-watt platform in order for you to get the best out of the fly rig. But obviously, it can do its thing on its own, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it had a lot of separation. That was the one thing that I noticed, because you were playing, you played a Strat and you played your Telly. But what I noticed was it just really, the notes were just they articulated just perfect. I mean, I was like, God, I can, Jeff, and you know this, Jeff, because you build your amps. When that single coil has no mud, it's like every note was just coming out, but it was still, it still had that drive behind it. Mm-hmm. And it was like you could just hear everything, which, there's a lot of amps that just get real muddy when they get any kind of gain behind them. And this didn't do that, It's like, like I told you that one time, Jeff, when I said it's like you took the Les Paul, you hooked it in, and it was like Dwayne Allman, but then when you put your Strat in, it was like Richie Blackmore without touching the knobs. And
an amp should do what the guitar tells it to do.
Exactly, but that's exactly what
the player tells
it to do. Even better. Yeah. Each guitar has its own signature, and I would hope that signature would come through the amp. Amps with tons and tons of gain and filtering and all this other kind of stuff, it almost doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. It all kind of sounds the same.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you can overdo it, I mean, I like to hear the sound of the instrument, And it's true, like, when I pick up the Strat, I have to say I do play a little differently, And it's really because of the bar. Mm-hmm. And it's also because of the second position, that phase position on the Telly. Sometimes I play differently. But that's why I brought the Strat on this tour, because on the new record I had some things with the Stratocaster that I knew wouldn't sound the same on the Telecaster, so now I'm playing both.
Cool. And the rig allows that difference to be heard.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very cool.
Yeah, they do sound different. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, it was like, I was like, oh my God, because you hear that Telly and then you go, okay, and then you hear the Strat and you're like, and you never turned around and turned a knob. You never touched anything on the amplifier. It was just, go, Yeah. And, but the wild part was that I noticed is you got some kind of overdrive or distortion on that piano. Is that correct?
Yeah, I know. I have the piano running through a few things. I have a wah pedal on the piano, and I have a fly rig on the piano, which gives me my overdrive and my delay.
Nice.
And I have a compressor on the piano. Not always on, but when I need to put it on, I turn it on.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Everything should have a little dirt, man. It just adds harmonic content.
Yeah, there you go.
It makes it three-dimensional.
And you have it painted silver metal flake. Is that what? Or that isn't stock color, right? Yeah, it's cool looking.
Did that for me. I had a red one that was painted sparkle, and then now we have a white cover on it, just for the new tour, new look.
Yeah, it looked good.
Nice. I was thinking about this, and I don't remember whether we asked you this last time, but you used to be a real speed guy, with a plectrum, and you decided to walk away from that and to start finger picking. Did you find that you needed to change like gauges or the way things were set up in order for you to execute that better?
No, I didn't change anything on the setup. What happened was, I was frustrated with my playing, and I was on tour somewhere in South America, and I knew that, I'm not going to sit down and practice, and in one night suddenly everything's going to change. So I decided, what if I got rid of the guitar pick? Because I would get up and do jam sessions and not use a pick, and I would do things on records and without a pick, but I never tried to do it on an entire gig. So I did that, and it opened up some other doors. And in other words, actually what it did was it closed a bunch of doors. And by doing that, it forced me into a different room. So I couldn't do any alternate picking. I couldn't do any sweep picking. Obviously, my legato technique, which is what I was always known for in the past, that didn't change. Mm-hmm. But what did change is because I lost like the sweep picking and the alternate picking, I slowed down, way down, and my phrasing changed, and I just felt more connected to the instrument. And then over time, I started practicing, which I rarely do. I probably should, but I hate it. But I did start practicing specific things, like alternate picking, but with my fingers. Or how can I do some of those old sweep lines with my fingers? And then some other things. I have a buddy that's a flamenco guy. He came over to the house one night, and I was kind of picking his brain about stuff. And my buddy Ben Woods. And so, Ben was showing me some of the stuff that he does in flamenco, which is a style that obviously I don't do. But I stole a few ideas from him. And so suddenly over the course of time, I started to get back the stuff that was originally in my repertoire. And I regained a whole bunch of new stuff. And then in the studio, if I record, I still pick up the guitar pick. I mean, if you listen to some of that stuff, you hear a guitar pick, you can tell when it's a pick and when it's not. But I mean, I can. Maybe a lot of people can't, but I can. I hear it, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely a different attack.
That was really, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Wow, that's.
Yeah, man.
It really it pushes your limits. I guess it pushes your limits so that you have to extend your boundaries and or find new ones.
I was very much like, oh God, this is a nightmare. Like I don't like the way I sound. I don't like what I'm doing. And what can I do to kind of rediscover the instrument? So that was it. And then also like there's a lot of things you can do. You can try to get into different styles and not with the attitude of trying to master it, but the attitude to try to understand it. And then that's fun. That's enjoyable.
That's so cool. Now, the thing that I pick up, because I remember discovering you back when you were on one of those floppy vinyl things inside of one of Guitar World.
Guitar player,
right? Yeah. You had a song on there.
Yeah, the sound page.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, because it was, you still had like some kind of funky type background in you, and obviously from your influences. And to just literally like, you abandoned that. You kind of put that to the side, and you were like, I'm going to sing and I'm going to do this. And you took on this really heavy Motown type sound. And correct me if I'm like, going the wrong way, but that's what I hear. And I'm like, you made it to where it's like really, really cool. I mean, I like Motown stuff, but when you're doing it, I'm like, man, this is like, it's almost like got a Prince vibe on some of your stuff. And you just, I don't know, man, it blows me away that you play everything, but then you're singing, and your singing's like insane. And then, then there's a guitar solo that I'm like, well, I'll never figure that thing out. And, it's just really wild how much like is in you. And how when you bring these out, it's like when you hear it, you kind of, and I think we've talked about this, Jeff, where when the change happens, you go, well, that's the perfect chord. You know,
right,
like,
and sometimes unexpected. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
which is great.
Oh yeah, man, and it's just like I just listened to the album today, and it's the album is Salting Earth, and it's one of those ones I got through it, and I was like, I just listened to that whole album, and I didn't, you know, it wasn't tiring. It wasn't any kind of boring or anything. I mean, it really, from song to song, the flow is really good. And, you know, that doesn't happen too much these days. You know, everybody's worried about that one single or you know, making that one hit.
I'll tell you something. When I make my records, I purposely, you know, there's two different schools of thought, I guess. And you know, I don't think there's any real set rule, because for whatever I'm about to say, there's going to be 10 people that do the opposite and have had much more commercial success. But I'm only going to talk about what works for me. Is not having any kind of pressure of a deadline. You know, when you have that, I'm sorry, there's going to be compromises. So when I work when I'm inspired, when I feel like it. So if I have an idea for a song, I'll document it, and then when I feel like developing it, I'll develop it, and that could be in that very moment sometimes. Sometimes it's not. But over the course of time, eventually, you know, I will have 20 or 30 songs completed, finished, done, the way I like them. And then I can sit down and listen to things and say, well, you know, this is really cool, but that doesn't work with that one, and this one's okay, but these 10, I love these 10. They're my favorite out of the group, and they really kind of fit together. If I sequence them like this, it kind of makes sense, at least to me. And so when I listen to something and I'm excited and I want to get up and dance to it or whatever I like to do, when I have that feeling and I have that connection of, wow, you know, this sounds like what I was hearing in my head that's coming out of the speakers now, then I know I'm done. Then I know it's finished. And that's really the only thing that, you know, that you can really use. You know, if you don't trust yourself or you doubt yourself or, you know, have a self-esteem issue, then it's going to be hard to do that. But
yeah.
I think for me that's the way I can really function is to work that way.
That is so cool.
That just must be so rewarding to go back to what you said about what I was hearing in my head is now coming out of the speakers.
Yeah.
It's got to be so fulfilling to be able to do that, you know. That's got to feel great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's not always, in the past it wasn't always like that because of various, you know, circumstances, you know, what label you're signed to, what producer, what band you're in or whatever it may be. And it's not, you know, there was a time, you know, where maybe I didn't have the same skill set that I have now, you know, like when I made my first record, for example. But, you know, over the course of time, I think probably when I hit right around the time when I joined Poison, I really knew what I was doing. Just before that, you know, I was signed to Interscope and I was kind of figuring it out. I had Danny Korchmar was going to produce my record, and I was super excited because he was going to make the record I wanted to make, like a Blue-Eyed Soul kind of rock record. We had the song picked out. At the last minute, the record label stops everything. And we had the budget submitted and everything. I was at his house talking about how we're going to do it, and they pulled the plug. And they said, we didn't sign you to do this. We didn't sign you to do this. We want you to make a hard rock record. And I said, no, that's not who I am. That's not what I want to do. And then ironically enough, they let me out of my deal, and I turned around a week later and joined Poison. So, you know, there I am. I'm refusing to make a rock record on my record.
Right.
I mean, it would have been a rock record, but they wanted it to be like hard rock, big double heavy guitars, you know, whatever was going on in the late 80s, early 90s. And then I turn around a week later and join one of the biggest, pop metal bands that ever was, so go figure that out.
That's too funny. Now, I got to ask, because I heard it on Jude Gold's show, and Jude is a good friend of ours, but I got to ask about your character that you did the one night where you were you roughed up by some bouncers down from your house?
No.
No?
No. Oh, you saw that video where I was getting the tattoo?
No. I heard the interview with Jude Gold, and you talked about I've seen your character with that tattoo.
Okay.
But,
okay, I know what you're talking about. No, so here's the thing. Years and years ago, I got to give credit where credit's due. This actor by the name of Dave Sheridan was going to make a music. Well, he did. He made a music video for me. And I had to go to this club in Hollywood and meet him. And I didn't know who he was. And I go in the club, and he's got long hair that looks like he hadn't washed it in a while. There's this guy, long hair, looked like he hadn't washed it in a while, glasses, and these teeth that were just horrendous. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, oh, my God, this guy is effed up, and he keeps staring at me. So I don't know that this is the guy that I'm supposed to meet. So then somehow I'm thinking, he walks over. I'm like, oh, no, this guy's going to try to talk to me. Oh, jeez. So he starts talking to me. He can see that I'm messed up. I'm not messed up, but I'm freaked out. So then he takes out the teeth. And I'm like, oh, my God, dude, that's hysterical. I said, you got to come back to my house and prank my wife. And he's like, all right. So he comes in the house, and we do this whole prank and blah, blah, blah. And it's just the funniest thing ever. So he told me where to get the teeth because they look so real.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a hold of these teeth, and for years I would wear them on and off, and I created this character called Kent Stanfield. And, I've taken pranks to the point where I had 2 Pennsylvania State Police officers show up at my uncle's doorstep because he called 911, and I took the prank to another level. Man, I got a guy calling me for another interview, but I'm going to put him to voicemail because I want to give you guys more time. Anyway, so what you heard Jude talking about was I put the teeth in one night and went down to the baked potato and tried to get in on a jam session. And I created all kinds of chaos, and I'm not going to go into all the details.
Yeah.
Because I think I went into detail with him, but
yeah.
Needless to say, I got on stage in character, and I got a bigger cheer at that guy when I did the guitar solo that I ever got for me.
Well, that's because people know and believe that you can do it, but this guy's out of nowhere. How the fuck could he do this?
Say it again?
Awesome. I said, they know and they believe that you can do it, but when this hobo guy comes up on stage, it's like they don't expect it out of him.
Oh my God!
The video you guys can find, and I think Jude might have actually shared it. But there's a video of me getting a tattoo with the teeth in.
Yes, I've seen it.
And the night before, I fell on my face.
Yeah, you had a shiner.
Basketball. Yeah, I fell literally on my face because my friend, I was with Guthrie Govan and me, and I think this cat, Jamie Humphreys, was there, and Paul Cornford was there, and we were all hammered. And I was talking about basketball, and I took him around the back of my house where I had a makeshift basketball court and one floodlight. And I started talking like shit about how great I was. And I tried to do a crossover dribble, and the ball got jammed up between my legs. Somehow my arm got stuck. I don't know how.
Oh,
and I
God.
fell, and I landed on my shoulder, and I hit my shoulder, and that caused me to smack my head on the concrete, and I skidded across the concrete on my face.
Jesus Christ.
And so I ripped open my eye. I still have a scar on my eyebrow from it, and I peeled skin off the side of my face by my eye. And my mom was staying with me at the time, and so everybody was like, the guys were like, oh, no big deal, whatever. So I go in the house, and she sees this, and she says, okay, that's enough. Everybody go home now. You guys have to leave. You know, I was really messed up. So the next day, I had an appointment for the tattoo guy coming to my house. And so he comes to the door, and I made up some story. He thought that's how I really looked, and I told him that our mutual friend got drunk and punched me in the face. And so he believed that story until my friend showed up. And then, then we told him it was a gag, and my friend was the one that was filming me. Anyway, these guys from Spain have called me 3 times, and they're scheduled. I hate to do this. I think I have to jump.
It's okay. Quite all right, man.
No, it's not a problem. But thanks for being on with us again.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if when you record, you are virtual or you move air. So which is it? And then we can let you go.
What does that mean?
Do you play amps and put it through speakers and mic the speakers, or you just?
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, unless I want a direct sound, because if you plug the guitar directly into a console or line level, input device, that's a sound that you may want. So I do that too.
Yeah.
And I actually plug directly in with the fly rig on one song on the Winery Dog record. I just wanted a different sound, so I've done stuff like that.
Cool.
And then the only time I ever did something on a guitar solo that was not a real amp, I was in Japan, and it's on the new record. Here's some trivia. Nobody really knows this. The song, I've Got You. The vocals in the bridge before the solo, I did on one of those little Samson mics in my hotel room. And then the guitar solo, all the lead guitars on that song were done in my hotel room with this device called Positive Grid.
Oh, yeah.
Not the amp modeling device, but the one where there's little pedals.
Yeah.
So I guess it is amp modeling as well, but they have little effect pedals. And I really didn't know how to use it. But I just pulled up like a random preset, and I was like, oh, that'll work, And so I did my guitar solo. So if you listen to that solo, it's a pretty cool sounding tone for that thing. But, those kinds of modeling things are really tricky because they are, in my opinion, they will never be the same as a real amp. And I know because I depend on a valve amp. My whole playing, the whole responsiveness of a valve amp. When you turn the volume down, what happens? When you turn up, what happens? When you overdrive it? There's all very specific things that go on. And so there's no algorithm, I'm sorry, that's going to be able to do every single possible thing that I may experience during a show by changing my location, my volume control, my pedals, how they affect the amp. So the modeling thing works well, in my opinion, for certain things. A guy that plays in a hard rock band that does solos with his volume on the guitar on 10 with a nice overdrive and some delay, that's great. You're going to have a great time. Or even on the opposite end, someone that's just doing a clean thing, whatever. But when you want to go from, a full, spectrum and get the kind of response that you get with tubes and a speaker, I hear the difference. I feel, not only do I hear the difference, I can't say that I hear it. If someone played me on a record, I probably wouldn't know. But I feel it as an artist, as a musician. I feel it. It's a relationship that you have that you can feel. And if it doesn't feel right, it will cause you to play in a way that will not put you at your best. I'll put it that way.
Agreed.
I love the way
if it feels right for someone to play through a modeling rig, then you can't argue with that. Go do it. For me, every single one I've ever went into, I could see, okay, in certain circumstances, I could do this. I could use it for this, that overdub, that particular solo, whatever. But, for everything across the board, no.
I love the way you put that. Yeah, and it is really all about the feel, and that's something I don't know that they'll ever get right.
And that's a good thing to end on.
And the response. Yeah, thank you very much, Richie. Thanks for taking the time. Go do your other interview. Best of luck with the record. Safe travels, man. And I hope to catch you next time you come around. Because damn, I was pissed I couldn't make it this time.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for talking to me, and I hopefully will see you somewhere on the road.
There you have the updated story.
Yeah, I'll just take a minute here because I know that, I was trying to express to him my feelings towards what I saw at the show, but I highly recommend it. I mean, that room was sold out. I mean, complete. There wasn't a seat left, and he obviously he can make the call to get guys that are at his level, and the two guys that he had with him, the drummer and the bass player, and I forget their names, they were just, oh my God, man. They were
I wanted to ask him and I forgot, and we should have. He mentioned Mike, but I'm assuming it's not Mike Portnoy.
No.
Okay.
No, and he's played with these guys for some years, too, from what I understand. And, it was just, it was very... Okay, so we can put it like this, and this is a good litmus test, I guess. When we saw Paul Gilbert, me and you, he came out and he did a 40-minute song of all of his songs from like 1986 to the present day, and it was a 40-minute medley, right?
Right.
And it was just, it was so many notes. I mean, we looked at each other like that is a huge chunk to remember, but it was absolutely precise. Right?
It was put together well. It was executed flawlessly from what we could tell, know, and it's just, there were so many songs and just change after change after change after change after change.
Okay.
And just all together.
So now you take that same thing and you give it to three guys that can improvise. Because when Richie got up, you could tell. I mean, you know how you can just tell when a guy's just going. Mm-hmm. Whether it was on the piano or if it was on the guitar, he was doing what he does. He's very good at improvising. Well, so are his guys. And there was a couple parts in the song, and it gave it this kind of loose feel, but it was still very tight. And I know that we talk in colors, and we're trying to do things with sound, and
that is all from experience of playing together,
exactly,
as a unit with these particular people.
Yeah,
knowing how to read everybody else and what it feels like. They're all feeling the same thing at that point. That makes a big difference.
There was a couple points, and Richie, when he is going, man, you can tell that it's in him. It's not just, hey, I'm performing in front of this audience. He was sitting, he had like a drum throne for the piano, right? Mm-hmm. And there was a couple times when he was just, you could tell it was really gelling, and he started coming up off of that chair, but he wasn't like standing. He was like...
Right, just kind of popping up
and crouching about a foot above it, and then he would come back down, and then he'd be looking over to his right, and then come back in, and it was really, really cool, and it conveyed, really well that it's not just... hey, we're going to play and hammer the check at the end of the night. We're here to, really get into what we do. And boy, did they. I mean,
That's
it was
really cool.
worth the...
now I'm twice as pissed because I really would have loved to see him play keyboards.
Yeah, and my awesome thing is that we were sitting right next to the stage. So that was even crazier. I mean, just to see that up close was pretty amazing. And just you could tell the guy he's just got so much in him that it's like he's like from another planet. You know what I mean? It's like I've never seen anybody with so much talent over so many fields. Just you got it when you hear the album. You go, you did all those drum parts and those bass parts. This is not a guitar player playing bass. This is like a bass player. You know, it's not a guitar player playing drums.
Yeah, and there's a difference,
Yeah, I mean, he wears so many hats. It's just crazy.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. So it was a very good time. I suggest if you get to see him and he's out there, don't waste the opportunity. You won't be upset.
Do not squander the opportunity.
Your money will be well spent.
There you go.
And
it's going to a touring musician.
That's right, and he's got a huge bus.
Records his own stuff and sells his own merch and tours to back up what he does. There's no mega sponsor behind him.
No,
I don't believe.
No.
It's like he's out there on the road doing what he's doing.
Yep.
And if you like music and you like what he does, you should support it, as you should support any act out there doing the same thing.
Yes,
that
is very true. So until next time, my friend.
That's right, because we're going to have somebody else send in that might be a previous guest. It might not be. You never know.
I never know. I'm Mick Marcelino.
I'm Jeff Bober.
And we're always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.